Good evening. It's Thursday night at 9 p.m. That can mean only one thing. Yes, only one thing. The UK Colts fans are back and live from a mini respite. And, the off season, it can sometimes be quite hard to fill shows with content, obviously, without using guests and more. It can be quite tricky sometimes to keep things going. But thankfully, we have something to discuss because Chris Ballard and the front office of the Indianapolis Colts have been very active once. Thank goodness, because it's been a few years, right? Yeah, there's been some free agent pickups along the way, but they're usually bargain bin claims, waiver claims, just stuff that's never going to elevate your team to a Super Bowl or a championship run. But with the pickups this offseason so far, we can't say he isn't giving it a good go. There's a couple of things that I would like to talk about regarding this. I've got a couple of thoughts as to why maybe not to get too excited. The Colts are signing aggressive free agents, and I'm telling us not to get excited. God, an O lineman pickup would be nice for a Colts fan, right? I think it solidifies Chris Ballard's plan in the draft, and I think something he has come to learn throughout his tenure, and I think a point that we could bring up and speak about is, does he believe that the offensive players are more... Okay, so I want to exclude QBs in this, and I'll bring up later why. I'll bring up why later, sorry. But does he think your offensive players, your linemen, your wide receivers, tight ends, running back, are deeper, are better starters in the draft? And he's sort of maybe realised that defensively, because he's tried defensively to get starters from day one through the draft. And, God, barring Leonard, right? I'm trying to think of actual draftees he's got. Obviously, there are a few. Rockison, three that have come and gone, sorry. Rodgers, Rockison, Juju still about for now, Julian Blackman, etc. Right? But last year was a mess, and the defense was the biggest problem. And I'm happy because we got rid of the biggest problem. Well, the joint top problem of this defense, and that was Gus Bradley. Whether Chris Ballard gave him the pieces to succeed is a different question. But over Gus Bradley's tenure, it was never good enough. We were bottom quarter defense in almost all things throughout his time here. So we got rid of him. Lou Anarumo is an unknown. The general chit chat and talk about him is that when he had the players... One second. When he had the players, sorry about that, it was great. But the Bengals, whether that's up to Lou or the GM, I don't know the Bengals GM, sorry, or the front office letting their main defensive players walk because they think they've got better or they can do better, they skint him. So has Chris Ballard learned his lessons of, has he learned the lesson of not giving his defensive coordinator what he needs. And that seems like a pretty simple and a pretty easy statement, right? That go and get top elite players. Go and get top elite players, and we'll just win it, and it'll be that easy. But they also need to fit the locker room. There's a lot that goes into bringing a player to your team, right? Well, there should be a lot. Are they scheme fit, or can they fit the scheme? Do they have a good mentality in the locker room? What is it like when you haven't won a game, you're on a 3-game losing streak and on a knife edge? And I think over the past few years we've seen from the Indianapolis Colts that when we're in them crunch moments, speaking defense for the time being, when our defense has been in them crunch moments and they need something and they want to get it through, it's just not been there. Crumbled is one way of putting it. Just giving up, wrong attitude, wrong mentality, always someone else to blame, always someone else's fault. And I think the pickups and the change of defensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator we got shows a good change of attitude for once from the Colts front office of this isn't acceptable. And for me, there's still one thing that needs to happen, and it's we need to go out that linebacker room. I'm sorry, I mean, if he's watching this, great, but I just don't buy Zaire Franklin's Pro Bowl reward. Most tackles in the league. He was on probably the worst defense in the league. Like, are you joking that gets you into the Pro Bowl? Being the best tackler on the worst defense? Like, what a joke, right? So let's talk about free agency, because we had a bit of general waffle there. So free agency started, and I think probably most Colts fans were asleep when the legal tendering period opened. You can sort of put your feelings out there and actually start chatting to people. But free agency actually opened at 4 p.m. on Wednesday. 4 p.m. on Wednesday, and pretty much the first thing that happened was the Colts, and like I say, I'm pretty sure most people, especially Colts fans, could come not to expect much, did not expect us to agree terms with safety Cam. I'm going to really murder his name, Cam Byam. I hope that's right. Just a quick catch up on Cam Byam. We can maybe do a deep dive on him at some point in this off season to see where he can improve our team. But quick catch up. 8 interceptions, 342 tackles over his last 4 seasons with the Minnesota Vikings, and I believe he's essentially played every game, right? Which is big with how hamstrung the Colts have been injury-wise. Yeah, so there you go. 65 games, 54 starts for the Vikings. 26-year-old, so he's 26, he's still young, he's probably just early prime. Just going through, last year was a very good year. Yeah, God, I've just completely forgot to speak. You're doing a podcast and you completely forget to speak. But anyway, yeah, so 6 foot, 200 pounds. This guy is heavy. He's a good pass defender, very experienced, and is playing on a winning team. Something the Colts need, a bit of culture shock maybe is going to be good. Someone who's going to come in there and hold them guys standards. And also a really fun celebrator, right? It's about it's about having fun with how you're playing, but also having the right to earn that fun. I'm sure most people know him for his celebrations, his routines from 90s movies. They are quite fun to watch, and hopefully we'll get to see a few in the Lucas Oil this year. So what did I think about this pick overall? It's great, right? Because it feels like especially the first two free agents we're going to talk about, they would have had more options than the Colts, and probably bigger paying options, I would imagine. We know. Sorry. So the deal for Cam, the safety Bynum, was. I've got it here. Where is it? Why can't I find it? It's one of these tabs somewhere. Let's have a look. Is it this one? Yep. And I believe it was it 1 year, 14 million? That's not right. The right one. I don't know where it's gone. Oh yeah, sorry. So the Colts have come to a deal, 4-year deal worth 60 million per league source. It is the most the Colts have awarded an outside free agency. In Chris Ballard's 9-year tenure, and that, I mean, he couldn't really offer. Who could he offer that money to on the current roster? No one. So aggressive. We've gone and got one of the big heavy hitters of free agency, which is nice. And we spend the right money. We've not tried to do the thing where we'll just see what we see, and we've offered them our deal, and we think they're worth this much. It's horrendous. Trust me, sitting there, and you're like, yeah, we've offered this much, but we'll see. And then, you end up with a teamy version of that person. Joining the show, ladies and gentlemen, is our co-host and guest, is a man who's probably sick of hearing about rugby scores, but is also very grateful for a very active Chris Ballard. And that is Nathan.
Hello. Good evening, mate. How are you?
It's a very good evening to be a Colts fan, right? Can you believe it?
I mean, I still feel like I'm in some sort of dream, some sort of 48-hour sleep, where Ballard has finally, after 10 years, opened the wallet to address our secondary with, certainly one player who was like the top of my free agency wish list in Tre'Davious Ward. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I'm happy, man. I'm buzzing, and there's been more activity as well, of course, but let's shine the spotlight on those two big additions.
Mm-hmm. So I've just been talking about Cam Bynum, if that's how you pronounce his last name.
Yeah.
And I was trying to explain how I feel about this one, right? Because this sounds so neglectful of me, but it's very Chris Ballard in the fact that the perfect player seems to have fallen to him in free agency somehow. And I'm like, yeah, it's a great move, and he still has to make the move, right? We, as Colts fans, we know Chris Ballard does not make the move. So he still had to go and make the move. It's a big deal, but a good deal, I think. I think it's very sensible. But he somehow just, I don't know, he got lucky with this? Is that too much of a simplification?
I don't necessarily think so, because I think, Bynum is one of three, big names kind of in that safety position, entering free agency. And, for me, I think Ballard acts quick here. Clearly, he was the guy he wanted, and he just got it done. This is the largest external free agency contract in Colts history. Let's hope Bynum lives up to that. I'm really, really excited that Bynum's here. He's been an exceptionally healthy player in his career. He's barely missed a game. And if you look up his stats, he's sneaky good, man. Sneaky good player, and I'm unsure if you've already spoke about this, but I think the really cool part of Bynum is he's coming from a Brian Flores Vikings scheme that's really complex, really multiple in a sense. And, I think we know that's what Lou Anarumo wants to bring to Indy. So it's just a huge pickup. And I'm sure we'll move on to Ward, but, these are guys who know how to win and win in tough divisions too.
And my feeling on this is a locker room mentality change, right? I was listening to Cover 2, I think it was, and the guys on there were saying like it was just horrible being in that locker room doing the interviews after the games last season. Like it was just like the worst place to be. Not because like we weren't doing great or anything, but just the feeling, the atmosphere, and all that jazz was horrendous. So these two to me, Bynum and Charvarius Ward, right, feel like, and I suppose it starts with Lou, but it feels like finally there's a proper, and I'm going to swear, so swearing warning, don't worry, we're not getting monetized anyway, but there's a proper fucking mentality shift now. And I love it.
Yeah, I mean, look at let's look at Tre'Davious Ward's contract, right? Career. This is a guy who has been at Kansas City, and then been at the Super Bowl, has been a starting cornerback in 3 Super Bowls and has won 1. This guy comes into Indy and basically says like, this isn't how you win football games. This isn't how you become a successful team. And interesting, in his press conference today, Lou had said to him before he signed that he's gonna, as he described it, let him run with some of the big opposition receivers. So we may finally see the Colts have we are going to see, Ward's a great player, and we're going to see the Colts have a genuine threat at outside corner.
And I think it's good, right? Because all of a sudden it takes, oh my God, I can't think tonight. Who was our young rookie cornerback this year who did all right?
Jalen?
Yes, Jalen Jones. He's come on leaps and bounds. He's still a there was, like I say, ups and downs, but he had a pretty good season, I think people could say, on a terrible defense. It allows him to go and be cornerback 2-3, learn a bit of Kenny's game, learn the underneath game, and be matched up with guys who he should be matched up in like development adjacent, if that makes sense. So he's no longer going up against the Justin Jeffersons. He's going up against the Naylor. He's going up against people like that. He's going up against the 2s and 3s. So he can develop his game at the rate he should be developing, rather than fuck, I've got a whole Tyreek Hill to minimal and Gus Bradley's gone cover 2 again.
Yeah, and I think I'm really excited to see how Jalen reacts to this off season. Juju Brent was healthy for 2 snaps last year. His career so far has been just so unlucky. a local guy as well. We should all be rooting for Juju Brents to, make it on the field. But, if something happens to Juju again, Jalen could really, lock down a future as the coach CB2 for the next few years. So, and what a guy to come into that, cornerback room and be able to lead it, be able to share experience. Ward's got a ring, and not many people in that locker room can replicate that right now.
No. I think it was something mad like the two of them, Ward and Bynum, have played something like 13 playoff games since the last time an Indianapolis Colts player has.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think what we're seeing here, we got to give Ballard some praise, right? Is, he said this year twice that he's going to change. He's going to change his approach. He's been way too stubborn, way into his own guys, so to speak. And what we've seen, we've signed another nose tackle from the Rams. Forgive me, I can't remember the guy's name. I'll Google it while we're talking.
Yeah.
But we're seeing 3 new faces on that defense already. Yes, the nose tackle is probably going to be rotation player, but we're seeing competition come in, and it's players like this that are really going to raise the bar, which, let's be honest, is at 32nd out of 32nd in the league. So that bar needs to come up quickly.
Yeah, it's a low bar, and I think what I'm quite happy about and what I'm excited about is it's a low bar, so it wouldn't have been hard to improve this defense with free agents.
Yeah.
But the fact we have gone and got the free agents in their position makes me feel excited for once about a Colts defense for a long time.
The nose tackle is Neville Gallimore, signed on a 1-year deal from the LA Rams.
There's going to be a future star. Future star. But no, so jokes aside, really, let's just talk about a little bit about Ward, because what I find interesting, like you say, Bynum come from the Vikings defense, and Travarius Ward has come from 49ers, but he's also played under your man and Steve Spagnuolo. Is it Steve Spagnuolo? Is that right?
Yeah, Steve Spagnuolo for Kansas City.
Yeah, who, I think we can all agree I think you're right in what you say, and Chris Ballard, right, for all his flaws, is not a stupid man. And he's gone, I've got a defensive coordinator coming in who runs a complex game. Let's go and get 2 guys who come from complex schemes. 2 guys who can be leaders, who could probably be first year, they wouldn't be first year captains in the career, but first year captains on the Colts straight away. It just, it's weird to say that. I just have no reservations about these pickups. I can't really look at them one way because they just make sense.
Yeah, and I was listening to another podcast this morning where a guy it was the James Boyd podcast, and he kind of said, Colts fans right now have something to be genuinely optimistic about. This is not something we're used to at all. And in 2 years' time, if both of them completely flop, I'm sure the media will ask questions. But mate, I'm going to go to bat for Ballard here. He's absolutely rolled the dice with 2 complete. We've spent all season, right, talking about the lack of stars on that Colts team, really, but defense as well. These are guys that are going to immediately come in and be that.
Yeah, and I think it's nice, and I think the problem is, right, Ballard, he's tried to do the honourable thing throughout his tenure, right, which is you bring guys in, you draft young, you get them in, you build them up, you develop them, you make them into superstars, and everyone's happy, and the town of Indianapolis is blooming, and everyone wants to go to Indiana University, blah, 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 blah. That's well and good having them American dream images, but it just, you don't have, because American football is so on or off, you don't have the time to develop these players really as much as you'd like. You know, you better, it's better to just go and get a couple of superstars and then think we'll make do with the rest, rather than we'll bring in 10 good guys and we'll try and get them to be elite because they're good guys and, you know, they're farming on the weekend playing happy villagers.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, you know, let's even roll, you know, back a few months, and, you know, the infamous "we like our guys" quote. You know, he lined up a rookie as the Colts cornerback one. You know, someone who had to go up against Justin Jefferson on prime time football.
Yeah.
Like, way to set your kids up to fail. And, you know, we were told that was good enough, and that was something we had to get behind. But yeah, Ward changes everything. You know, genuinely changes everything. And, you know, Bynum is going to be able to sit in the middle. You know, when Lou goes to wanting that kind of ball hawk safety over the middle, Kenny can come closer to the line of scrimmage where he wants to be. You know, I don't think we're going to see Kenny dropping into deep coverage as much as maybe we would of under Gus Bradley, because just nobody else can do the job. Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. I did not think I'd be on a podcast with you tonight talking about excitement last week when we planned the show.
Yeah,
honestly.
And I tell you one thing we're not going to see is we're not going to see Liatu Latu dropping back in coverage.
Let's pray we don't. Yeah.
Should we talk about the other big one before talking about the outgoings?
Yeah, I guess we have to talk about a new signal caller coming to town. I guess that's who you mean. Some excellent marketing by the Indy social media team as well, calling him Indiana Jones. Quite like that.
I can't lie. I saw that and I was like, oh, Anthony, man, you're in trouble. I love that fucking name. I just want to say about this, right? And I suppose we had a big debate in the group about, do we like this or not, or what should we do with the quarterback situation, essentially. And I think everyone had a different answer, you know. But rightly so. I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to stick to my thing. I don't like this pickup. Not because I potentially have any hate towards Daniel Jones. I think he was a victim of a horrible system and a horrible coach and a horrible franchise, really. You know, they stink over there. They let Saquon go. They don't listen to the GM's kid when he predicted Drake May. Was it Drake May or Jaden Daniels?
Jaden, yeah.
We've all seen the clip, right? I just don't like it because I don't understand how he pushes Anthony to be a better quarterback. I was really of the opinion of, do you know what? Yeah, go and get. It's obviously easier said than done, right? We could have rung these guys. I might have said, no, I'm not interested. But go and get Justin Fields, or God, who else? There's many you could go and get who I think, you know, Anthony would sit up. If we signed one of them, Anthony all of a sudden sits up and goes, what the fuck? Well, hold on a fucking minute. And then Chris can go to him, well, no, you need to earn this. Where I look at this and I go, that's another Gardner Minshew.
So I think it's slightly bigger than that, right?
Mhm.
And this has purely been from, trying to do some research in my own
Yeah,
time about, Daniel Jones and kind of dialing into people who, know way more about the Giants than
yeah,
I do. But, from when you Google Daniel Jones and you look at the traits, it's, first off, locker room guy. His teammates absolutely adore him. He's that old school classic quarterback, first man in at 3 a.m. in the morning,
yeah.
last man out, and the more you kind of unpack the issues that have been linked with Anthony, a lot of it is learning to be a pro,
Mhm.
and learning to be the face of a franchise. I also like the pickup from a position of, um, you know, Anthony, what might happen to you at the end of this season? I know what that feels like. I
Yeah.
was the face of one of, the biggest teams in
Mhm.
NFL history, and I got replaced, because I simply wasn't good enough. And I think there's that element to it. And
Yeah.
uh, maybe I'm gonna, beat you to this, or maybe this is a question you have for me, but if Anthony can't beat Daniel Jones to the job, it was done anyway.
Oh
He's
yeah,
not he's not a franchise QB.
yeah, and I suppose my feeling is this year it's now or never for all three in Ballard, Shane, and Anthony. Right, I think we've all pretty much agreed it's going to require divisional championship round sort of levels. I think to keep all three. I think Ballard might go anyway potentially. Um, Maybe not, but I think it's going to take playoffs minimum to keep Shane and Anthony. I just, I don't like I say, I don't know. It's a bit like it's a bit like the reverse of paying Jacoby Brissett and then go and getting Philip Rivers. If that makes sense, it's a bit like having uh, Philip Rivers and then going. This is a bad analogy because these players are nothing alike, but you get what I'm trying to say. It's a bit like having you've got your guy, but you're not paying him yet. You're paying him next year potentially. It just feels like a replacement rather than a pusher. I don't know.
I think you do make. I can see where you're going with that point, and I think a kind of wider maybe way to look at it, and let's use Gardner, one of your first kind of links there. When Gardner came in, Shane's playbook basically went out the door.
Yeah,
We had no RPO game, we had no dual threat game. He had to change everything up, right? If Daniel wins the job, or if Anthony is benched again, gets hurt again, I think Daniel can come in and run that offense as it is.
yeah,
Are we going to see the rainbow throws? Are we going to see, you know, Anthony putting it on a 20 pence piece through triple coverage with like a 200-mile-an-hour fastball? No. But are we going to see more throws on the first and second level?
mm-hmm.
Yes, we categorically will. And, we I think especially when we think of the group, we're Richardson fans. We want
Yeah.
Richardson to be QB1, but what has Richardson done in reality to kind of automatically earn the job
Yeah.
over any other signal caller, especially Jones, who's actually won some. Even last season, Jones was hot for a period of time.
Didn't they beat us?
Not last season, sorry, the season before. Towards the end of the season, he was playing as like a top 15 QB.
Yeah. 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 Like I say, I suppose I don't hate what they've done, and I completely understand it. I just feel like if you're gonna go for if you're saying to me we need competition to make our starter QB1, then I just don't believe that you believe he is QB1 of the future. If that and like, oh, we need to make him realize. What do you mean he doesn't realize? He's been playing 2 years, maybe injured, but he's been here 2 years. If he still doesn't realize, then well, then what are you doing here? Because like, there's probably about 900 quarterbacks that would kill to be in Anthony Richardson's position. So I think what I don't like, and it's a bit of a halfy move. It's a bit of a on the fence. It still says to me unsurety, and I suppose that's what I don't like about it. Is it still says we don't really know. Anthony doesn't really know. You know, if you go with Flacco for another year, let's say, not that anybody wanted that. My fucking goodness, no, touch wood, we're never doing that. It says you believe Anthony's the guy, right? If you go and get a Fields, this is he's the first example that comes to mind because he's the big free agent. I think he's gone. Is he staying at Pittsburgh or?
He's signed with the Jets.
That's it.
2-year deal with like 30 million guaranteed, I think.
Yeah. If you go and get someone like that, that says to me, okay, we don't believe Anthony's the guy, but maybe him being sat on his ass watching someone else play, it can drag the eliteness out of him. This move sort of says, like I say, it just to me, it says we don't know, and I think that's what scares me. Is I feel like they just don't know yet, and that's scary for you.
I think we've got to bear in mind, all right, that the guy coming in has to be okay with the idea of being sat on the bench for the season.
Yeah.
Which I don't think Justin Fields was ever going to do that. You know, what was coming out of Pittsburgh was, one of the reasons why Justin left them was because they wouldn't commit to him being the starting quarterback. So,
yeah,
there was always going to be that layer of, and they've dressed it up as a competition, I think, personally. There's a lot of guys who are way cleverer than me, I always reference, Dan Orlovsky here, where, is it truly a competition? When you've got someone like Anthony who, really needs to develop and come on, and, because it truly is last chance saloon for Anthony, I believe. So it's... I see what you mean.
Yeah.
But I'm going to stand on the side of the debate here where, for me, I'm all or nothing, Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
This year, it's either we see genuine improvement in his game and, more importantly, his health, or we're starting again, because we cannot keep being in this position. And the idea of Daniel Jones being completely average and Chris Ballard rewarding him with a contract to be QB1 of Indy, that's terrifying. Terrifying.
Yeah, like I say, we've got so much time in the world to deep dive on this whole situation, so we'll move on. A quick recap of where we are recently. This is on the Colts website, so it might not be the most up to date. Funny saying, but we could talk about it. So the outgoing so far, the re-signed. We've re-signed Ashton Doolin and Wesley French. We've also re-signed, who else is it? Danny Pinter. There's still a few outstanding. I'm not going to go through them all because there's quite a few, and most of them will probably get done over the time. Released or agreed terms with the Minnesota Vikings are both Will Fries and Ryan Kelly. Happy for Ryan Kelly because he's a Colts legend and should be in the Colts Ring of Honor one day. Especially, we all know what him and his family have gone through while being at Indianapolis, and yeah, the deal for Will Fries, obviously, it's not a deal. We get nothing for it. The pickup of Will Fries for the contract they've given him is massive contract, and go and get that money. But I'm a bit like, have they been watching the same Colts we've been watching over the past year?
I mean, look, pre-injury, Fry's stock was rising, right? I truly saw him as the future of the right guard position, right? Knowing what we know now, were Indy going to be able to give him Quentin Nelson money? No. Should we have? No, because we don't want to upset, our first ballot Hall of Fame guarding Quentin Nelson, right? Probably going to be one of the best Colts ever whenever he hangs it up. And, as you say, I'm happy for the guy, 7th round draft pick, going to a team that's, really trending upwards, playing for one of the best head coaches in the league right now in Kevin O'Connell, and, gets to protect JJ McCarthy too. It's an interesting landing spot, but yeah, 77 million for a guy where, currently I don't even think has been declared healthy from his knee injury.
Yeah,
that's pretty nuts, as you say.
I think to commit that money, it says they know something. So whether it's just been kept under wraps that he is healthy, because there's all manner of back shadowy reasons for these things. But like we say, happy for the guy. We were never going to give him that money, not because think he's not worth it, but mate, like we can't say he's worth it off last year, unfortunately.
No, and I mean, again, it would be Ballard just doing things in like weird ways. What successful team in NFL history pays their guards top money? You pay your tackles top money, but when you hit with a guard like Nelson and like we've been so lucky to do, you pay them too, and you make sure they're a Colt for life. But echo your thoughts as well. Ryan Kelly, future Ring of Honor member for Indy, and has been a constant for certainly me as a Colts fan in the last decade. So good for them. They've found great landing spots, and I'm sure they'll quickly get a playoff appearance before we do.
Yeah, best of luck to him. So I want to talk about maybe one more free agents before we do stock rising, stock falling. Someone who must have been absolutely buzzing at this news, and someone who must have been terrified, is Laiatu Latu and CJ Stroud. Side news: Laramie Tunsil's been was it a trade, or was it?
Yeah, traded to Washington.
Yeah, traded to the Commanders. And just a quick question. I know we're not massive Texans fans because we support the Colts, but do they ever learn their lesson? Or
it's a fascinating trade, right?
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't keep CJ Stroud upright last season. We saw it in the latter end of the season too. And then you go trade away, one of the best left tackles statistically in football for, multiple picks, and you kind of scratching your head going, well, how do you plan to keep CJ upright now? You just lost your blindside tackle who, kind of gave Latu a welcome to the league last season. He showed him like, you're a young pup here, mate, and you've got a long way to go. But I mean this in the most sincere way. Good luck to Laramie. I'm glad we are not going to see him in the South anymore. And yeah, let's see how they get around it. I mean, do they show their hand? Are they going to trade up in the draft for a tackle? Is that why they've made the move? Who knows? But yeah, I agree. It's a head scratching move, and we'll have to try get that Texans guest on again to
Yeah,
ask him what he thinks about it.
yeah. So, shall we talk about stock rising, stock falling?
Yeah.
So, just you give a couple, I'll give a couple for each of who we think after these free agency trades, and we'll do one separately for the draft because I really haven't had time to sit down and go through combine videotape. So more the free agency side of things and the Colts. Who for you is your first stock rising?
My first stock rising is Chris Ballard.
Mm-hmm.
In the space of 72 hours, he's probably won thousands of Colts fans back on board,
Mm-hmm.
and got some national media attention too as well. I imagine lots of outlets are talking about how this is out of character, this is a new direction for Chris Ballard, and I mean, as fans, I think we really deserved it. This is the 10th year now of the same old bullshit, which he even admits himself. He has fed us bullshit for many, many years. And finally, are we seeing, we've asked ourselves a lot, right? What does Jim Irsay see in this guy? What does Ballard have over Jim Irsay? Maybe now we start to see that. I mean, I'm being a real hopeless kind of optimist here. But yeah, I think for me, my first one is Chris Ballard. What about you?
I'm gonna go a little bit different and say my first one is Tanner Bortolini.
Yeah.
I think for obvious reasons, right? I don't really need to spell it out, but with Ryan Kelly going, the flashes we saw of him last season, especially Colts fans remember the Pittsburgh game where he just monstered his way downfield and into the end zone by himself. Pretty much, it was like watching that clip out the blind side. This is a big season for him now, and I'm really excited to see him take it and run with it because loved him last season. Go and make yourself a hero, kid.
Yeah, for sure. Brings a bit of juice to that, line again, a little bit of kind of, a youthful injection too. So, yeah, I'm happy for Tanner, and he looks like he's a bit of a dog too. So, pretty cool to have a fiery centre again. Which Ryan was.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly was a bloody damn good centre and is a damn good centre, but
Should have been
really
Hall
cool
of
to,
Fame.
yeah.
If we managed to keep Andrew, he would have been Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah, completely. But yeah, cool pick actually. Cool pick.
We'll switch to stock falling so we can end positive then. So your first stock falling.
Stock falling is EJ Speed. Yes, he hasn't been re-signed. Yeah, EJ Speed. Look, if he was re-signed, he probably would have been cut already. When you look at the projected Colts defense next season so far, there is a blinding need at linebacker now.
Yeah.
Right. I know we'll talk about the draft in future, but a key card I think has fallen into place of Indy potentially drafting Jihad Campbell to fill that linebacking spot. And if you look at our defense on paper, it is going to be a drastic improvement. So, yeah, for me, stocks down, EJ Speed. I cannot see that guy getting a big money deal again. He was exposed last season.
Mm-hmm. So I'll do my first stock falling, and maybe stock falling's a bit harsh, but there's definitely friction here at the minute, and that's Pat McAfee.
Okay.
For just that whole segment on Daniel Jones, that was just weirdly passive aggressive towards Anthony. I just watched it like, okay, we get you don't like Zaire Franklin, but is this real? Are you still going down this road of you versus the Colts? I didn't really get it. It just felt horrible. Like I get things didn't end well last season between him and the franchise potentially, but
this
really?
is a 22-year-old kid we're talking about as well.
Yeah.
You know, it was just a hot, as you say, it was a kind of nasty, spiteful way to, you know, announce Daniel Jones coming into the building.
And just as far as I know, there's never been any bad blood from Anthony to Pat, and I'm just like, mate, like, again, like I say, with what happened to him in Zaire, I have my own thoughts on Zaire. I'm sure people who watch this show know, and like I say, plenty of time in the off season to talk about this. But that just felt like personal, and it was just like, all right, like, chill out, mate. It's, you know, like, what the fuck are you doing?
And I tell you what's really interesting is, have you seen the 360s done on it?
No.
So he's now come out and, you know, framed it in the classic Pat way of, you know, Colts fans are being really mean to me on Twitter and, you know, do what you need to do. But he's now kind of, you know, backward stepped and he's now backing Anthony again. And, you know, he hopes Anthony's going to become the, you know, the face of the franchise and so on. So, you know, I imagine he's realised how bad for business being, you know, a sportscaster on ESPN and talking about young men like that on live TV gets for you.
And it absolutely should, right? Because it I don't want to talk too much on this because I'm wary of how long we've been going, but it instantly sparks friction between Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson of,
yeah,
you know, Anthony's 22, he's going to be going, fuck me, he said something to Pat, like, he said, I'm going to come in and, do you know what I mean? It felt unnecessary and, like I say, nasty. So I'll go with my second stop fall and then we can snake back. Second stop falling for me is linebacking partner to EJ Speed is Zaire Franklin. I was saying before you come on the show, I don't merit his Pro Bowl appearance. I think it's absolute arse that the best tackler, it was just the most tackler on the worst defense in the league makes a Pro Bowl. It's fucking criminal. And this comes from a place, I am someone y'all could probably go and find who loved Franklin, who thought this guy's a monster. If we could get someone come in and support him, you know, wow, what a linebacking partnership we could have again. But he has just tailed off an absolute cliff, and his attitude, again, another one. I just want him out of the building, Nathan, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, you know, let's circle back 30 minutes as well, where we're talking about, you know, new arrivals getting off the plane who, you know, won playoff games, make it to the playoffs regularly, you know, won a Super Bowl, lost two, and we've got a guy who is happy he has a podcast.
Yeah.
You know, that's the variation, isn't it? Is, you know, we've got a guy who, you know, whilst getting destroyed by the New York Giants last year, you know, being like 15, 18 points down, making a meaningless tackle and shouting, I'm a beast, or whatever he said, or I'm unstoppable. This is the level of leadership that locker room had pre 72 hours ago.
Yeah.
You know, I would love to be a fly on the wall when Charvarius and Zaire meet. And Charvarius probably going to be like, have you got one of those? Because I do, you know, shut up. Stop doing a podcast.
and he's not even got one from being in the area, right? He got one for being a key part. That I think that is massive as well, and should be appreciated. That these guys have not just been like someone who I've seen a lot of on socials recently is Isaiah Rogers. I like Isaiah, great player and stuff. He wasn't a major. That sounds really like just dismantling what he's done because I'm not. But he wasn't the major cornerback for the Eagles. But if you was to go on Instagram, you would really think he was cornerback one. And I think with Ward, like he is actually one of the start. I suppose you could call it a starting 11 who earned that ring. Like,
oh yeah, he was cornerback one when he won the ring.
Yeah,
he started the Super Bowl. He's first man on the field.
And
So
I think that wields I suppose what I was trying to say, that wields a big difference than just being a special teams gunner or a cornerback for a Super Bowl winning team.
Yeah, completely. I agree too. I think if this defense really hits the ground running and is in the top half of metrics and so on, I hope Zaire can keep up.
I just want to say I really have just cut my ties with him. Like, go and play for the Giants. Then go and play for the Cowboys. I don't care. So your final stock falling then?
Stock falling. I'm gonna go with Mark Glowinski.
Ooh.
Because
not been re-signed yet.
For that reason, but also like I think prior to free agency, there was a genuine idea, right, that Glowinski was going to come back. He was going to be the guy. I think he was going to make it to the bargain bin level of free agency and be re-signed, right? I would not be surprised if the Colts take a right guard at 14 overall.
Wow.
I genuinely would not be surprised. You think of that line now, priority one is keeping Anthony upright. Taking a first round top 15 guard makes a hell of a lot of sense. For me anyway. I say that genuinely, it does, but I think Glow could be waiting around a few weeks if he's looking to, get back in that locker room. I'm really not sure if we see him come back until probably after the draft.
And I agree with that. I don't think he was the Mark. I don't think he is the Mark Glowinski we all know and love.
Yeah.
It's easy to look at it with Serpentine tones, right? That because when he played for us, before he went and got his money, fair enough to him, understand. He was great, right? He was a part of that great oil line that we had, that top 5 oil line, and just when he came back in last year, I was like, okay, this is for next year. I wasn't actually sitting there going, yes, we got Mark Glowinski, everything's fixed, Anthony's not going to get sacked. I was just like, sort of like the Darius Ward thing, right? Not the same level, but we brought in a leader. We brought in someone who knows a system, who knows what it is to be a Colt, who, if I remember, maybe too late, but I can't remember, had Andrew there behind him.
Glow.
Or was it Rivers?
No, I think Glow came in the Wentz year. Right. I'd have to look into it though, because he started his career in Seattle, then came to Indy. So I think it was the Wentz year. I'll do some Googling while we're talking.
Anyway, I've got sidetracked to my point. But yeah, it was sort of, I looked at it as in, this is a good move for the future. He can teach Gonzalez a few things and blah, 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 blah. Unfortunately, mate, I do think you're right that he's sort of redundant, unfortunately. And I don't say this like taking any pleasure from saying it because, again, a great servant to the Colts. But
I know, actually, you're right. He came in when Jacoby Brissett took over from an injured Andrew, and then in 2018 was Andrew's last season. So you were right. Yeah. Well done.
God, I pulled that from the back of my mind. But
I didn't think he'd been tenured to Indy that long, honestly.
So, like I say, you just look at the experience, and last year he wasn't great. He was average in an average sense. So it's a bit like, we tried it, it's not worked. Don't get dressed, mate, unfortunately. But on to bigger and brighter things. I'll give you your final stock rising, then I'll do mine.
My final stock rising is Jonathan Taylor. The reason for this is the Colts just signed Khalil Herbert, who can legitimately come in as a pass catching option. I don't think we're yeah, he's gonna, I think
you don't think we're gonna see Goodson in the end zone then?
I don't think so, no. I think Herbert's going to fill the Kenneth Gainwell role when Shane was the OC of the Eagles, right? Which means Taylor is not going to have to do it all constantly, and he can just go back to being that, top 3 workhorse running back who can actually have some, reps on the bench too, to keep him fit, keep him interested. I'm going to go with Taylor as my stocks rising guy.
Excellent. I suppose you're right. You'll know this when we relate to soccer. Newcastle had some unfortunate injuries, especially at a time what's massive for them coming up. And I've learned this through losing Bukayo Saka. You think, oh yeah, we'll never lose that player. Fucking world class. We're never going to lose him. And then you lose him, and then all of a sudden your backup is Raheem Sterling, and you're like, oh shit. And I feel like that's what's happened with Taylor over the past couple of years. You got Taylor, yes, fantastic. We're never going to lose him. He's not playing the first 3 games. Our backups are shit. And when I say shit, I say it with the utmost respect, because my 40-yard dash is probably about 16 seconds. So I really don't mean no offense, but you need someone who's going to be a 7 out of 10 when called upon and who's going to be available. And I think that will allow Jonathan Taylor to just keep being Jonathan Taylor. My second and final stock rising for this episode is... No, I'll save that for my hot take at the end, actually. And
okay, cool.
I'm sorry, I've just been completely thinking of something in my head, but I've got a bit of a hot take, and I think you might have inspired it. But I think my stock rising and my final one has to go to Lou Anarumo. And this is a weird one to give, right, because we've not actually seen any of his defense. But to me, I feel like he's maybe comes to the Colts with the pre-agreed thing of, I'm coming in to change shit. I'm not coming in to be your 1-year coordinator. I'm not coming in to sit there, and I'm coming in. I want some guys, give me some tools, and we're going to go and fucking win something. And I think that's instantly thrown him straight up in my books of, this is it now. There's no fucking cloister. You're not being late to training. You're not doing podcasts. You're not fucking around. You're on the field or you're gone.
Yeah, and I mean, Lou should be feeling pretty blessed. Like he had more backing in 2 hours than Gus Bradley had in 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Why I think that is Ballard got way too comfortable with how vanilla that defense was, and I think he knew I don't need to invest in this for it to be, a kind of tick over defense, right? Yes, it came last year, but in seasons before it was not last, right?
Mhm.
Lou's defense can't run like that, and I think we're finally learning that. And do you know what? I'm glad you mentioned Lou because a 1 year deal always makes you think, mm, is he going to stick around, or
Yeah.
does he even want to stick around?
Yeah.
This investment to me is if Ballard and Shane make it through 2025-26 season, does Lou get signed to a multi-year deal?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm saying I hope so now. got a
We
few
need to
games.
see it
Yeah.
first, right?
Yeah.
But I think the blessing for Lou is like even just calling a few different protections. We're going to be frothing at the mouths, We're not going to be able to. We're going to be going. Hang on, we're not sitting in cover three. Like it's just going to be a joy to watch, and I'm really excited for it now.
Yeah. So all to the sort of all this week really. I know it sounds weird. I haven't been able to get this nagging feeling on my head, and you saying Jonathan Taylor then has just sort of brung it back to the front of. And I've got a hot take, and maybe you've got one. And I'm going to die on this sword. I'm going to die on this sword. Anthony Richardson, Pro Bowl year, and I think this is just going to be the year for him. Because, and it's a simple reason, our receivers can't be as bad as they was last year. Our tight ends cannot be as bad as they was last year. So I just think this year everyone's going to go, whoa, where's this Anthony Richards come from? And it's actually been there all the time. But we just need to. I just think it's going to go off this year. I've got a good feeling. I'm saying this probably about 6 months away before even preseason starts, but I've got a good feeling for Anthony this year. I think. I don't know. I just got a nagging feeling. I just can't get it out of my head. Maybe it's the blind optimism that we're going 17-0, but yeah.
I always love your optimism, Harrison. I think it's interesting. You make an interesting debate because Anthony's operating at like a high 40s accuracy percentage, lowest in franchise history, one of the lowest in league history, and now he's working with Josh Allen, and Josh Allen's kind of wizard magician who worked on his throw-in motion and turned him into an MVP who's just signed a $250 million contract. Imagine this world, right? Anthony's operating a 65% accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
He's getting a deal.
Yeah.
That is a massive turnaround. And for me, I think I'm more interested. You might hate me for this, right? It's very boring. This is a very purist opinion. I'm more interested in Anthony playing 17 games, and hitting a 65 to 70% accuracy rating with his throws and running an offense at first, second, and oh my God, did you see that 60-yard throw level?
Yeah.
Than I am him being a Pro Bowler.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And I think the money will come quickly if that's what happens.
I just think maybe Pro Bowls are on. I just think we're gonna see ceiling Anthony Richardson here.
Like a genuine step forward. Yeah.
And I think that's probably a better way of putting it. Like, you need floor raisers, and I can't argue that Daniel Jones isn't a floor raiser. And all of a sudden, if Anthony can't get onto the floor level of Daniel Jones, then see you later, mate. You tried, it didn't work. Go and sell some on an advert. But yeah, I think we're going to see Anthony's ceiling this year, or I think we could see ceiling this year, and that excites me. God, been going an hour and 10 now, mate. We've got plenty of time in the off season, but is there anything you want to get out? Anything you've been thinking of? Weird dreams? The Colts going to the Super Bowl?
I mean, I have like a draft wish list now, but I think we could do an episode on that. So let's let ourselves and anybody who's watching kind of, settle into bed. But no, it's been a fun episode, and as I say, an episode I really wasn't expecting to do with the Colts breaking the bank on its secondary. So yeah, I'm good to call it here, man.
Excellent. We'll hit the hard out there then. Usually I can have a fun little dig at something or someone at the end of the episode, but I just think, God, when's the draft? April
the 24th, yeah.
April 24th. So I've got plenty of time before I even make a dig about that. But yeah, I suppose it's just good to end a Colts stream with genuine optimism. So thank you to everyone watching, who has watched, who will watch. You can find us on all the socials. I am on Blue Sky and Threads. Nathan, you're on Instagram, and is that it? Instagram at the minute?
Yeah.
We're going to have more. God, the articles. What about the articles? Robbie wrote an article on tight ends, which you should all go and check out. I'll post a link after the show is finished. I'm going to be working on articles. We'll get them out. I've been running behind on that. That's my fault. So yeah, thank you to everyone watching. Be a friend, tell a friend, and go Colts. If I could end the stream, go Colts.